From surplus funds to pre-foreclosure. Today I want to talk to you about how I got here, how I've been working the surplus funds business for the last 12 years, but now I'm focusing more on pre-foreclosure and partnering with people like you, real estate professionals. So in this video, I'm going to talk about, why this is an opportunity for you, what you're missing out on, why this is important for you to know, and how you can take advantage of it. So let's dive right in. Okay, so I'll tell you my quick story. I've been working the surplus funds business for over a decade now. And when I would speak to a homeowner who just lost their property, or the heirs of a homeowner who just lost the property, they would always tell me the same thing, and that is that before the property sold at auction, they were speaking to somebody that was supposed to either purchase the property in pre-foreclosure or was marketing the property but failed to sell the property right before the auction. And I always wondered who these people were. And I thought it would be nice to be one of those people, right, in pre-foreclosure, to see if there was something I could do to help the seller when they were going through a tough situation financially, right, property in distress. So if there was a way that I could maybe help them in that scenario, which as a consequence, because I started looking into pre-foreclosure over the last, I would say, year and a half, I've been able to wholesale properties as well. So I think it's super important for folks who are surplus finders to also know how to wholesale. And the main thing is getting in touch with the homeowner in a pre-foreclosure situation. And some of you are working strictly the pre-foreclosure market. So you're real estate agents who are marketing NODs, notice of default properties, or NTS properties, notice of trustee sale properties, or you're a wholesaler, or you're a fix and flipper, or you buy rental properties and you like the distressed property niche. That's your focus. It doesn't matter where you're focusing. The bottom line is that at some point you're going to run into a situation like this where a property owner just cannot either stop the foreclosure from happening, they're being too stubborn, or maybe it's the heirs you're dealing with and there's too many heirs and they can't decide, or one of them's lost, or one of them's in prison, or one of them's going through some tough times. I've seen it all in 12 years in this business. And so you should be prepared if that happens. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what are surplus funds, right? What is it? Why it's important to you, and of course, how do you take advantage of this? And and by the way, if you want to learn more about this, surplus funds and pre-foreclosure, how to identify a good opportunity in pre-foreclosure, maybe even potentially looking at just doing surplus funds full time. So you can go to my school group. It's SKOOL, school.com/surplus funds. So school.com/surplus funds. It's completely free. There's a bunch of tools and trainings and scripts and templates in there that I'll be dropping over time. I'll drop the link in the description. So let's jump right into this. So a new opportunity for most real estate professionals. Now, surplus funds is not a new concept. It's not a new opportunity per se, but it could be for some of you guys watching this. It could be something that you've never thought about, heard about. Maybe you've heard about it but didn't know how it worked. So let's jump right in. So, what are surplus funds? So let's talk about that for a second. And why are most real estate pros walking away from the property at the auction? And here's why you shouldn't. So when a property forecloses and it sells for more than what's owed, I'm talking about what's owed, all mortgages, liens, and judgments are paid off at the auction by the auction buyer, the cash buyer at the auction. The leftover money is called surplus funds. Okay, now these surplus funds legally belong to the homeowner or the heirs of that homeowner. And what we do as real estate professionals, what we do is we help the homeowner or the heirs, and we reunite them with that money, with those surplus funds. And as a result, we get paid, and we get paid handsome commissions or success fees for facilitating that transaction. And oftentimes, like when those funds are generated, what most homeowners don't realize, and this is something for you to know, is that whoever's holding those funds, whether it's a mortgage foreclosure and it's being held at the foreclosure attorney level, or the courts are holding on to the funds, or the county is holding on to the funds at a tax sale, they don't just write the check and put it in the mail. There's a state statute that needs to be followed, and most people will never figure out how to do it. They'll just sleep on it. And this is the reason why there's billions of unclaimed money just like this that is just sitting with the government, and if no one comes forward to claim those funds, then they use it for whatever they want to use it for. It just becomes part of their budget. So our job is to make sure that we reunite the homeowner or the heirs with funds, with money, with an asset that is rightfully theirs by law. Okay. Now, what are the amounts? Like, what can be generated after an auction? Surplus funds can be a $40,000 surplus funds. It can be 30, 20. I typically don't go after anything less than 40,000, just because I have systems and tools and resources and people that need to get paid. So it's got to be worthwhile on both sides. Like, we got to be able to help the homeowner or the seller. But also we have to make sure that we're compensated for our time, energy, and efforts. And like I said, oftentimes this money goes unclaimed. So why does this matter to you? Because this is going to show you, I'm going to show you, and in my school group, I drop a lot of this sauce in there. I'm going to show you how to turn these deals into commission. So, and why should you even want to do that? Here's why. If you're working the pre-foreclosure space, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're wholesaling, you're an agent who works those type of sellers, you're a fix and flipper, you're a landlord, it doesn't matter. You've done all of the legwork up into the auction, right? You've spent time, energy, marketing dollars maybe on that lead, on that potential deal. And then all of a sudden it goes to auction and you walk away like it's, like if it's a loss, and it really doesn't have to be. So don't let those types of leads go to waste. Now, here's what happens, and for those of you who don't know how to handle a transaction like this, which I would assume most people don't. If you've never done it before, you've never trained on it, or you've never been trained on it, or you've never done the research or, gathered the intellectual property to be able to handle this, we can handle the claim for you on your behalf and on your client's behalf. Okay, so we can handle all the legal and the claim processing. You just make the connection, and that's how you can partner with us. So, how do you partner with Alfred? That's exactly how you do it. So if you identify a lead in pre-foreclosure, you're working that lead, it's going to the auction, and you know that there's a lot of equity there, and that the property is going to sell for more than what's owed on the debt. So if the property is, in debt $100,000 with all mortgages, liens, and judgments, and it's a $400,000, $500,000 property, and whoever buys that property at the auction, the cash buyer that buys that property, they're going to probably pay like $200,000, $300,000 for that property, and so that's going to generate a surplus. Okay, The other thing about this is like this gives you another reason to stay in touch with that homeowner or that seller, and it gives you another reason to reconnect and continue to add value. So if you're an agent and you do this for someone, now you're the hero. You're a wholesaler, you do this for someone, now you're the hero. And guess what? They're going to remember that. They're going to remember that you helped them not just buy the property or sell the property. If you're an agent, you know, it's not all about just taking their property from them, right? You were there even after the fact when it was too late and the property foreclosed at auction or tax sale. And when they felt that life was over, everything was, you know, going downstream, everything was spiraling out of control, you were there to help them make a tough time a little better. You were the light at the end of the tunnel. So what's going to happen is, especially if you're an agent, and, you know, bottom line is you should know how to do this anyway, whether this comes back to bring you referrals in the future or not. Having this skill or knowing how to get this executed, having a partner that has done thousands of transactions for 12 years is not a luxury. It's not a luxury anymore. It's really a survival skill that you need to have in real estate if you're working this niche, the pre-foreclosure niche, distressed property niche, which if you're an investor, fix and flipper, wholesaler, agent, at some point you're going to be working this type of seller. So it gives you another reason to connect with them. Now, here's how you can take advantage. I talked to you about, again, why you should know about this, right? What you're missing out on. Like, there's thousands upon thousands of dollars that you're missing out on. If you've ever had a deal go to auction and is you lost that deal because of a foreclosure and you just walked away from it, or the seller ghosted you, or you ghosted the seller, it doesn't really matter. You know, sometimes there's a situation where, you know, it's completely out of your control. Like, you can do everything correctly. You can do everything in your power to try to get that deal sold in pre-foreclosure, or to try to fix that, buy the property so you can fix and flip it. Or maybe you were a landlord. Doesn't matter. You can do everything correctly, but something can still happen that is completely out of your control. So how do you deal with that? You know that there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in surplus funds that you're just walking away from. So here's a good way that I propose that you can capitalize and make sure that not only are you providing more value to the seller and that homeowner, but you're also taking care of your business, right? Because you spend all the time, energy, and money marketing to that lead, having conversations and multiple phone calls and emails and all these things you do. Maybe you're doing PPC, or maybe you're doing meta ads, whatever the case is. You don't want to just walk away from that. That's going to hurt your business. And so I would suggest, and it doesn't even have to be me, I would suggest you partner with a professional that knows this space. Okay? And one of the ways you can do that is actually joining the school group. School.com/surplus funds is completely 100% free. There's a bunch of, you know, tools and scripts and trainings that are in there now that I'll be adding on as the days and the weeks come. I'm doing live Q&A calls weekly. I'm reviewing deals live. If you have deals that you think might have surplus, if you need to know how to evaluate a deal to know if it's going to have surplus when it's in pre-foreclosure, I have a training in this group on that. And ultimately, you can turn these dead deals, the deals that you lose to auction, you can turn them into $5,000 checks, $10,000 checks, you know, $50,000 checks. You can turn one transaction into a six-figure check. You know, so it really depends on how much surplus is there, but nonetheless, like, you shouldn't be leaving this kind of money on the table. Again, I hope that helps and it opens your eyes a little bit to, you know, what you're missing out on, and of course how to take advantage of this. So if you're interested in being a JV partner, you can do that. I'll support you 100%. I've got the legal backing. I've got all the back-end support to process your deal and get it to the finish line. There's JV agreements. Everything's in there. JV submission forms. Again, it's school.com/surplus funds. I'm going to put it in the description, and it'll also be in the bio up top. So I'll see you on the next one.